Hey, how's it going? This is Mike with expandingsound.com. Chances are if you're on this YouTube page, you're somebody like me who likes to mess around with synths and recording gear and things like that. So I wanted to make a video today about the R24 and the LiveTrak L12, both Zoom products. I like both of them a lot. I've had an R24 for a long time, and I've always found it to be a pretty awesome piece of gear. It's super easy to take anywhere, and you can set up with anything, and 8 simultaneous tracks without anything else attached, even just running on batteries, which is just so great. A friend of mine lent me his L12 for a little bit now, and I've been using it for a little while, and I really like it. But I also still see benefits of the R24, so I wanted to make a little video talking about 5 pros of each unit. I think both of them have advantages over each other in certain aspects. So if you're in the market for either one, you can kind of know what you're getting into. So I'm going to start with the R24 because that's the unit I know best. That's the older of the two and the one I've had for a while. And I know that they say that the LiveTrak L12 is a successor to the R24. It's something that, they built upon the R24 with, but at the same time, I still see a lot of benefits to the R24 depending on your recording needs. So the first benefit I want to talk about is the fact that it's battery powered. The L12 is not. So if you wanted to, you could just take the R24 anywhere with no power needed, nothing. You don't need a wall wart, you don't need anything for it. It'll run just on 6 AA batteries. And you can just pretty much put it anywhere at any time, take it out to the woods, take it anywhere you want. I think that's great, honestly. I mean, something that can do 8 tracks anywhere like that is pretty awesome. The next benefit I want to talk about is the 2 built-in condenser mics on each side of the unit. I actually use these all the time. I like them a lot. I set up my recorder sometimes just in the middle of my jam space, and I'll turn those on and just use them as kind of like a stereo field recorder type thing. I know that the L12 has the slate mic, which you can use and you can still just record with and stuff, but it doesn't sound as good. The left and right mics on the unit I think are really cool, honestly. I thought that was an awesome little thing that you can just set up as just 2 inputs on there. And if you're somebody like me, like just impromptu jams just show up with friends or whatever, you just turn those on, let it go, and all right, there's your recording. You don't need to worry about setting something else up if that's already in the room with you. The third benefit I want to talk about is the built-in drum machine. I think this is a pretty cool feature that I wish the L12 kept, but I understand why they didn't. Space is limited. And I don't know how many people were using this, but if you don't have a drum machine, this is a very easy thing to set up. And the little grid to set up your sequence on is pretty awesome. It sounds pretty good too. I don't mind using it at all. I have other stuff that I'd probably go to first, but at the same time, it's not a bad sounding drum machine at all. There's some good samples in there. The fourth benefit I would like to talk about is the combo jacks on the side of the unit. Now this is just kind of a matter of preference really, but if you needed to do something where you needed a small footprint where you were actually putting this underneath something or putting on a table or something like that where you don't really need access to the recorder unit itself and space is an issue, it's nice to have these combo jacks on the side because you can just set up a platform right above it, where all you need to have access to is the faders a little bit, and you don't have to worry about it taking up too much space as far as height goes. It's a very small unit, and that's the 5th benefit that I see, is that it's got a smaller footprint to it. You can kind of set it up anywhere. It's not as wide, it's not as tall, it's very easy to use and doesn't take up a lot of space, which is great. The L12 is definitely bigger. Now, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but, with this kind of stuff, with all these boutique units that are being built all the time now, space becomes an issue, like I know all of us have seen tons of people's setups before where they've just got stuff stacked on top of each other left and right, and sometimes you are worried about space. You want to have everything set up so you can just go. So having the R24 be so small is actually a pretty awesome thing. Alright, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the L12, which is kind of the next evolution of the R24. I like both of these units a lot, in case you can't tell. They're both super cool. And the first 2 pros that I see to this LiveTrak L12 are kind of similar to each other, so I'm going to lump them together here, but that's more inputs and more outputs. I've been using the same amount of inputs for my Daw-less jams. I'm using the 8 inputs, but what I'm doing with the other 2 stereo channels that it has a 9, 10, and 11 and 12 stereo channels. I'm using some of these extra outputs that are on this unit. I believe it has 6 total. You know, you get your main mix, and then there's 5 sub mixes that you can do after that. So, you know, that's like 6 mixes at once, basically. But I'm using 2 of these sub mix outputs to run into auxiliary gear, and then I'm coming back on the stereo channel. So it's a way for you to set up a couple of aux sends in case you want to use different effects. Right now, I've been using my Chorus Echo tape delay machine, and I'm also using my Chaos Pad, my KP3, as effect sends and returns. I love using my KP3 to mess with effects on the fly. It's very fun to do, you know, and even though the R24 and even the L12 have, you know, some effects built in, this gives me a lot more versatility with them. But the next thing that I would say is the dedicated EQ knobs are very nice to have on this unit. And even though you have to select the channel to set it up where you're using the dedicated EQ, it's still nice to have on there. It makes it feel more like a real mixer. I've been using an X32 at one of my jobs, and that has the same kind of setup where you select your channel and then you can dial in your EQ from it. The R24 didn't really have a way for you to access the EQ besides menu diving, which is, you know, I mean, it can be done, it's just not as fun to do at all. I'd much rather have the knobs in front of me and see it kind of a little bit with the LED meters that are on here. Another benefit that I see to the LiveTrak L12, which may seem a little nitpicky on my part, but I think that the combo jacks are a lot easier to use on this L12 than they were on the R24. I don't know how many other R24 users out there have this same problem, but you plug 1/4 inches into it and you actually have to like tug on it to get them out. It's really kind of a pain, and I never liked that about it. I always found that kind of irritating. Like you're like pulling and yanking on your cables, even though, you know, obviously I'm pulling on the adapter portion, so it's not going to mess up the cable. It's still like not fun to pull it out. You actually really have to yank on it, which is just irritating. The LiveTrak L12s are not anywhere near as finicky as the R24s are. They don't lock as hard, which is fine. It still locks good, you know, you feel like it's a good connection when you put it in, but it's nowhere near as difficult to pull out as the R24. The next benefit I see to the L12 is the fact that it's a class-compliant device, and if you're an Apple user, that's a huge thing. I always wish that the R24 could do this because I would have found it to be a much more useful device this way. But now you can just, you know, plug an iPhone or plug an iPad right into your L12 and use it to record right onto it. You could kind of do that with the Zoom R8 and maybe even the R16, but I don't remember. I've done it with the R8 before, but it wasn't really like a practical way to use it, and it was super laggy. With this one, I've had no issues because it's just a class-compliant device and it worked right away. With the R8, like I had to power the USB bus that I was putting it in with. Now with this, I can just run a cable right into it, no problem. 12 channels, recording, super easy. And this way, you know, if I'm using this as my mixer for impromptu jams or, you know, just playing with friends, I can record the 12 channels right onto my unit, and my friend can, you know, take his phone and plug it in and get his mix right out of it that way too, which is awesome. And finally, I also love the comp knobs on each channel. I think it's great. It's a little quick, easy compressor that you can just add to each channel. Very simple, no frills compression that you're adding to each. And it sounds pretty good. It's nice and easy. It's just a nice thing, you know, less menu diving. I think that's great. I always found it a little irritating with the R24. You can use a compressor on there too. You can use effects, but having this comp knob right there and having the effects send right on this unit is just great. It makes it a little bit easier, and again, it makes it function more like a regular mixer, which is kind of what you're looking for with this L12. The R24 functions a little bit more as just a multi-track unit. This one is a multi-track unit and a mixer at the same time, so I think that's really cool. I do think that L12 is a little bit more of an all-around machine, but I also still see benefits to the R24. I like both. And I don't think you can go wrong with either one. So if the R24 suits your needs a little bit better, you're not going to be disappointed. Same thing with the L12. think it's an awesome upgrade, and I think it sounds great. I actually do think that the pre's are a little bit nicer in this L12 versus the R24. They seem a little bit more lively, and it might just have to do with the fact that it's so much easier to dial in EQs and comp and stuff like that. It just sweetens everything up a little bit more than the R24 did. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video informative. I don't do too many videos like this, so hopefully you liked it, and if you did, thank you very much.